welcome to Mystere Creations. Today I'm speaking with Jason of Paranormal Patio. He is a friend and a great researcher. Please check out his show. You can find his content at paranormalpatio.com or on Patreon at Beyond the Patio. Welcome, Jason. Nice to have you on the show.
Pleasure to be here, man. Looking forward to it. Been looking forward to it for a little while now. So,
yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and Paranormal Patio?
Sure. Hey, my name's Jason Andrews. I'm a typical dude for the most part. I have a regular job, work with my hands. I have not disclosed publicly where I work, but that's okay. We're going to keep that under wraps.
Yep.
The Paranormal Patio podcast started 2019, 2020. When did this pandemic start? Oh my goodness.
2020.
Yes.
But
so
technically you started just before it.
Yes, I did. This whole year, almost 2 years now, has just been a blur of confusion and angst and frustration. And I work the overnight shift, so I barely even know what day it is, let alone what year it is. Anyway, it's awful.
Yeah. I do the same thing.
So my friend John and I started this podcast. We had done another unrelated podcast before that we really just wanted to have fun with, and schedules got in the way, and we had to kind of stop doing that one. So whenever our schedules opened up, I was like, hey, would you be interested in focusing on a new podcast that strictly deals with paranormal stuff? And he was on board. I was on board. We were good to go. So I think we did 3, maybe 4 episodes together. And then his schedule changed and he had a bunch of stuff going on. We didn't part on bad terms or anything like that. The opportunity for John to return to the Paranormal Patio still exists. Just a matter of, time. Yeah. And so whenever John had to bail, I took over the reins, changed the format from 2 guys in the same location talking about something to interviewing guests, which seems to be a pretty popular format. Obviously, here we are right now.
Yeah.
And I just started season 3, and every week brings more followers and more downloads and more plays, and I'm just glad that I'm able to share the information that my guests bring to my show with the public in a way that maybe they didn't have before. And I always look forward to the conversations because I'm into everything that's paranormal, and magic and cryptids and ghosts and UFOs and aliens and everything. And so my guests are completely eclectic. I don't typically have back-to-back of the same topic, and oftentimes there's several episodes in between. But that's kind of the long and short version of it.
Excellent. What was the inspiration behind the show itself?
So really it came down to just wanting to hang out and talk weird stuff with John, because John he's my nuts and bolts UFO guy. Okay. So although our philosophy on UFOs and aliens differs dramatically, we would just sit around and talk about that for fun. And so whenever we decided to go back into podcasting and give it a real hard try, it seemed like a natural fit.
Okay. In your background, what paranormal experiences have you had?
Oh, we're going to crack open the vault here.
Yes.
So really what I like to think started my personal experience journey was when I started studying astral projection in high school. And I'm sure that if you've heard of my show and you've heard me talk, I've usually mentioned at least one thing in an episode that has happened. Maybe not every episode, but several episodes a season I will. So when I started getting into astral projection, that quickly led me to studying the channeling of Seth by Jane Roberts. and the associated writings by her husband, Robert Butts, which then opened a door to a lot of other things. Around the same time, I encountered my first full-bodied apparition that ever, actually, well, not ever. I've had two. Both of them were actually animals, though, and not people, which is interesting. So I was visiting my aunt and uncle, and they had a place out in the country, and there was this dog that ran up to me as soon as I got out of my car, this little bitty dog. And it was like running figure eights in between my legs as I'm trying to walk, and it was like trying to jump up at me, but it never touched me. And I finally make it to the house, and I'm like, when did you guys get this nutso dog? And they're like, what dog are you talking about? And I described this dog, and my uncle's sister was there, and she started crying because I had just perfectly described the physical description and the activity of a dog that she had that had passed away before I ever knew her. And so that was the first like ghost thing that I had. And later on, in my high school girlfriend's haunted house, I saw a cat while I was using the toilet, that disappeared into the wall. The house was special. It was, terrifying in every sense of the word. And the cat was the only thing I saw. It was a feeling of heaviness in this house, and I've never felt anywhere else. And I've been to some weird places, right? Mm. But this house you would walk in, and you just felt like you were 3 feet through the floor. And one particular event that happened, my girlfriend and I were watching TV. We were laying on her futon. And when a commercial came on, we turned and faced each other, and we were talking about whatever it was we were watching. I do not remember what it was, but she like sat up like super fast, like WWE Undertaker, like, yeah, you know, and she looked over at her door, and I'm like, what are you doing? She said, I thought my brother was coming in, because she had a younger brother. He was always curious and kind of up my butt, and, so I looked, and obviously there's no one there. The door's closed. I never heard anything. And she said, oh, it's at the foot of the bed. And I said, what's at the foot of the bed? And I looked down, and I don't see anything. And then suddenly it was like this sheet of static electricity fell across my entire body and settled on me, and then slowly pulled over it from right to left. And when it left, I looked at her and I said, did you just feel that? But I already knew the answer because I saw her face, and I recognized the exact same thing that I was doing with my face. And she described exactly what I had just felt without me saying a word. And that house was something special. Since then, I've seen a couple of unexplained lights. I have heard the possible noises of the Bigfoot, the North American Bigfoot, which I do not think is a physical animal. I do think it's something beyond that, and I imagine we'll probably get into that. Yeah. I have seen a floating orb of light. I have been in the presence of just energy that you can't explain. If you can understand what I'm saying, and I'm sure you can. Yeah. Hopefully everyone else that's listening can. So yeah, that's a few of the things that I've come across in I would say probably 19 years or so
of investigation and life.
Yes. A lot of that wasn't being sought out. It just kind of happened. And yeah. I do feel like since I've started seeking it out, it doesn't come as often.
That's basically what I've found. When I'm not seeking it out, that's when it ramps up.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Otherwise, you're just sitting there spinning your wheels saying, why aren't you doing it now?
Yeah. Poking it with a stick. Come on, do something. Do something.
Yeah. It's not like a trick pony. It's not going to do it on your call.
No, absolutely
as much as you want it to.
Yeah, totally agree. That's my experience anyway.
Well, I think you've already answered this question.
Well, I'm happy to answer it in another way.
What's the most terrifying experience you've had investigating?
Does it have to be a paranormal experience?
No.
Okay. Because it's most terrified that I have ever been while investigating something was not due to the thing I was investigating. As you know, and you'll probably cut that out a whole bunch of times because I'm talking to someone that I talk to regularly, right?
Yeah.
But back in the spring, I went down to Kentucky on a solo mission to start working on a documentary, and I was totally alone, very rural, unpopulated, no cell phone reception type of area. And I had already worked myself up a little bit thinking if something happens out here, this is it. Like, I'm not going to have any help. So I'm on my own. And I was going to this specific cemetery, and I knew exactly how to get there. It is a very long 3/4 of a lane dirt road that goes out to it with about 3-foot grass in the middle. And I'm about halfway down this road, and on the left-hand side of the road, there's this old burned-out type of house trailer. And there's 4 pickup trucks sitting in front of it and a bunch of guys standing in these trucks with shotguns and rifles. And here I am, out-of-state plates in a place that no one goes. And there's these guys there. And I didn't really know what to do. I couldn't really speed up because the road did not allow that. And so I just looked at them casually and waved as I went by. Now, from the point that I passed them until my return up the road, the only thing I thought about was around this next bend, they're going to be there with a truck across the road. And this is how it ends. I can laugh at it now. Yeah. But like at the time, I legitimately, I had made peace with my life. And so I didn't even get to enjoy or really accomplish what I set out to do because I was so overwhelmed. Yeah. But so I'm coming back up the road, and, each turn in the road passes and there's no one there. And I make it back to their little trailer area, and they're all still in the exact same place, and they all waved really big at me. And I just waved back and drove on. And so instantly it was like, oh, this relief has just washed over me. And, the next time I went, I've been there, I think 3 or 4 times now. The next time I went, I wasn't nervous at all, and I actually got to do what I wanted to do. So it worked out. But that's the most terrified I've ever been on an investigation.
Oh, that sounds an awful lot like Golerville in Nova Scotia. That's a place where the guys will sit out on the road with a shotgun, and if you come up there, they'll shoot at you.
Wow.
So, yeah, it can be scary at times.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. It has shaped my planning for every trip that I've made since then. I'll just put it that way.
Well, you don't expect that sort of thing, but when you're out in the boonies, you end up having to get used to the fact that people are going to have guns around you all the time.
Yeah. Comfortable with that. I was not comfortable being in a place where I assumed I didn't belong, and these fellas did. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to die here today, especially with no way of telling my family about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did. I looked at my phone, and there was nothing. I couldn't have even called 911 if I wanted to, if I needed to. Nothing.
So bad. What was your favorite interview?
Favorite interview for my show?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a big question. I'm gonna say
you can narrow it down to 3 if it's
okay. Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna have to say number 1 was Adam Towla, because from that interview, Adam and I have developed a pretty real friendship, and we talk all the time. He's awesome. Been on my show. We work together on a live stream for his content, and so that's got to be number 1 just because of that. Mm-hmm. As far as just for the interview quality itself, I think that episode 2 of season 3 was a surprise for me because I wasn't exactly sure what to expect when I'm interviewing a Thai Buddhist exorcist.
Yeah.
And I ended up really, really digging that conversation. And it was one of the interviews that just flew by. I looked at the clock and was surprised at how long we had been talking. I would also lump in, of course, the Penny Royal guys, Nathan and Darian and Kyle. I would say the Beyond Sight interview that I did with Kevin and Jessica was also a lot of fun because that spurred a new wing of my investigation in Kentucky whenever I was planning the same trip that we were just talking about. So
Yeah.
valuable to me in another way.
Okay. With your documentary, how long will it be before that will be out?
Oh, hitting hard here, pulling all of them out. Okay.
Sorry, man.
So no, it's totally fine. I had expected that it would be easier to sit down and make a documentary for the first time than it is. And I may have had higher, quicker expectations than I had any right to. And so I'm at a stage now where I simply have to sit down and look at myself in the camera and talk, which you'd think would be relatively easy for someone who does a podcast. But I'm a really introverted person, and you wouldn't know that, but I can talk to another person on a podcast or on a phone and I'm fine. If I'm by myself and I'm revealing things and putting them out, out into the world or out into the energy, whatever, I struggle. I struggle a lot, and I feel like I feel like maybe I'm talking to a therapist or something, and I just don't have it in me. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm hoping to give it a really good run and have it out before summer.
Talking to someone else is always easier when you're trying to bear yourself. That is the hardest thing to do. I found in recording some of the things that I have this year, the same thing. When it comes time for me to do my thing by myself, it's always harder than just talking to a person.
Absolutely. And you could put me in a room full of thousands of people and put me on a stage with spotlights and a microphone and the whole bit, and I will not so much as shake. Yeah. But, sitting here and just looking at a camera and telling parts of the story, it's difficult.
It's scary.
It is a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and half the time you don't know where to start.
I feel that until I get started. And then once I get started, then I can give it a good run, but leading up to that first little sense of accomplishment that you get, like, okay, yeah, I'm good. That's the hardest part. It's like Stephen King was quoted once as saying, it's not the monster that's behind the door that's scary. It's the reach for the doorknob or the walk up the stairs. It's that build towards actually doing it. That's the hard part. Once you get going, everything is usually okay. You can handle it, but you got to get up the stairs first.
The build to the unknown.
Yes.
How has Hellier affected your work and what you do?
Well, this is an easy question. It has affected my work in the sense that my work did not exist prior to watching Hellier. Because what happened was, as I'm watching Hellier in season 2, they introduced Lonnie Scott, and Lonnie Scott, turns out, only lives like 45 minutes from me. So I looked him up on Facebook, and we got in contact, talked a little bit. That was about it. A few weeks later, he put out a request if anybody could do some graphic design work for him, and I happened to, do a little bit of graphic design. I'm not great at it by any means, but at any rate, I offered the services, and I've been doing all of his T-shirts and things for his website and his store for a long time now. And during the pandemic, right before we started the show, really at the very infancy stages of the pandemic, he made a post on social media that said, if you have any sort of creative ideas, you have any sort of fuel to do something with this time that is going to be so far out of your normal range, now's the time to act on those creative impulses. And so I kind of took that as the call, and I thought, that's when I reached out to John. I said, hey, do you have free time right now? And he said, yeah. And then, here we are. So without Hellier and without Lonnie Scott, there would be no Paranormal Patio, and I have no idea what I would be doing with all this time and money.
In listening to the Penny Royal, what has been the most engaging part of that journey for you?
Well, I would have to say that it was something that I missed the very first time that I listened to Penny Royal all the way through. The second time I started listening to it, the last episode, Nathan is talking about Aleister Crowley and how he had passed through Kentucky and visited with relatives in Livingston County. And that, how I missed it the first time, I'll never know. But that one little line was just like an ambush, because I had been already working on this whole story for my documentary, which largely takes place in Smithland, Kentucky. Okay. And Smithland is in Livingston County, Kentucky. So then we went down a whole big rabbit hole, Nathan and I, just based off of that one line in his show. And so I would say that's definitely been the most impactful and the most engaging part of Penny Royal for me.
Okay. Bigfoot, ghost, fairy, or flesh and blood?
So I think you and I have talked about this a little bit. Yeah. There's this clay thing that I'm working on, this clay theory. I was calling it a recipe before, but I think I was talking to Matthew Bird about it on episode 3 of season 3. And it's the clay theory is what I'm going with now, because I think that this united energy exists all around us all the time. Mm-hmm. And based on several indicators that we're not presently aware of in their exact measure anyway, that we interact with this field of energy, and it presents itself to us in a manner of different ways. And I think that Bigfoot falls into that scope. I think that ghosts and aerial phenomena and other cryptids fall into that scope as well. And I think there's several things that affect that and affect how that clay is shaped. So what do I think Bigfoot is? Do I think it's flesh and blood? Not in the same manner that we are. Is it some sort of interdimensional, creature that is able to bounce around? Possibly. Does it even know that it's bouncing around? Maybe not. Is it a fairy? Is it a ghost? I think that falls under the clay theory. I think it's whatever it is. I definitely think it exists, and I definitely think people that encounter it are telling the truth. I just don't believe that it's a flesh and blood creature. That being said, if someone ever presents one to me, I will eat my words.
Yeah, me too. My own experience with it was interesting because I was sitting on the side of a mountain looking down into a gully, and I saw something huge walk the length of a field and then just disappear in the middle of the field. So if something does that, it can't be just flesh and blood. There's either a portal there and it just came in and left, or there's something other going on there. Either it's doing it itself, or there's a portal there allowing it to do that.
Or both.
Or both, yeah. After these messages, we'll be right back. Do you like records? Well, Turntable is the best. The owner knows his stuff and can help you find anything you might need. You might even see some famous people there, as band members drop in from time to time to check out what he's got. He has posters, CDs, and much more. If it's something rare that you're looking for, he probably has it in stock or knows where to get it. So drop by or give him a call. That's Turntable Records, Fantan Alley, Victoria, BC. And their phone number is 250-382-5543. That's 250-382-5543. Welcome back. In terms of magic, what type of practices do you do?
I kind of have my own thing going here. I pull from a lot of different schools. I started really looking into thelema and ceremonial magic under Marco Visconti's wing for a little while. It's not a good fit for me. I do not like the shared terms with Christianity and the Bible. I'm not a Bible person. I'm not a Christian. I'm not an immoral person. I just find organized religion to be a major downfall of modern day society and societies prior. So any connection to that, I have a hard time relating with. And so in that system's not for me, and that's fine. And I'm sure it works for other people. I'm not going to downplay results. If that's something that you can work with, I'm happy for you. That's great. It's not for me. I borrow a lot from folk magic, chaos magic. I don't think I can't put a name tag on it, I guess. But witchcraft, all around, I'm just a weirdo, really. That's what I am.
Yeah, same here. You can't really stick to one thing and have it feel like it's you.
Absolutely. I actually just did an interview last night with a magician who you'll get to hear in the future on episode 4 of Paranormal Patio season 3.
Awesome.
And we talked about that a lot, and about if you find effects with one thing, it doesn't mean that's the only thing. And people that fall into that only thing trap are only limiting their potential. So if it works, that's great. Keep doing it, but also look around and see what else works, because you might be missing things that you don't know exist. So it's worth checking out other schools of thought.
Try 10 things and see which ones work out.
Exactly.
In terms of practices, do you do tarot quite often?
I'm a fan of tarot. I am not a great reader because my memory is awful. And so I rely on reading the visual interpretation, of each card, and it's a lot, and I'm busy. I'm too busy to sit down and do a good job. So I don't offer readings to anyone or anything like that besides myself, where I can sit with it for a minute when I have time. Candle magic is kind of a thing here, in the studio. Sigil magic is a part of my life for sure. I'm starting to work with some herbal concoctions, and I've always been into incense as well. So, there's connections between all of those things that, if you could just take all of those and put them in a blender and kind of pour it out, that's kind of what I'm doing right now. Okay.
In doing the lucid dreaming stuff, how vivid can the experiences become?
Oh, incredibly. One of the most incredibly vivid and lucid dreams I've ever had was where my friend John, who I was talking about earlier, and I were abducted by aliens. And I'm to this day not 100% sure that it was just a lucid dream. At the time, there's no way that you could have convinced me that it wasn't physically happening.
Okay.
I feel like I was shown something in that experience that relates to potentially how reality works. But like all good dreams, only the fascinating parts stick around, and you can't always put all the puzzle pieces back together. But I experienced a purple 3-dimensional grid work, just empty cubes, if you could imagine, stacked on top of each other, that you could go through the walls, and each cube would have something different in it. It wouldn't be anything that made sense. So For example, the first one that I remember was a potted plant. And that's all that was in this room was a potted plant in the corner of this little cube. It was, I would say, probably a roughly 10 foot by 10 foot by 10 foot cube.
Okay.
And there was this current of air that would blow through these cubes in just a random order, it seemed to me anyway. I noticed it whenever I saw John riding it like some sort of surf or wave, and he was having a great time. I wasn't worried about him, so I decided to try it out. And I would go through different cubes, and I'd encounter other just random artifacts. Some things didn't make any sense to me at all that I can't even describe. But then, there was a desk. There was like a reclining chair. Things that I feel like, might be a part of our physical existence. And maybe this is a way that some other intelligence operates within our rules, within our paradigm of life here on physical Earth. This is how they see things and interact with things. That's really deep, and I'm not sure that it's right. This has been several years ago, so it was very Interstellar finale-like, but it was before Interstellar, so
okay.
It was weird. And whenever I saw that scene in Interstellar with the infinite bookcase, I was a little freaked out because of the similarities to that.
That would do it. It would freak me out.
I'd love to go back, though. I'd absolutely love to go back now with some basis of understanding, because at the time I was experiencing all of that, but the reality of never seeing my family again and not being able to explain to them why I left or where I went, it took over the whole experience. So as interesting and fascinating as it all was, it was really just sad. And again, it was so real to me. You couldn't have convinced me that it wasn't really happening. And I mean, I broke down multiple times in this experience and just lost it. I cried. I screamed. But then every time John would be there laughing and cutting it up and riding this wave of invisible air through these cubes. And I guess it lightened the mood a little bit.
Yeah. Did John have a similar experience though?
No, he did not. That's something, right? So is it just a lucid dream, or is it
something from the future, perhaps? Or
even something that is being hidden from him, or that he doesn't remember, and maybe he was there, There's a lot of variables.
Yeah. Have you had many experiences like this?
Thankfully, no, not exactly like that. But yeah, I've had several, lucid dreams. I would say, without trying to purposefully have a lucid dream left to my own devices, I would say probably 3 or 4 a year. They've slowed down the older I've gotten. Astral projection has completely went away and is beyond my grasp. But at one point, when I was really studying in astral projection, the lucid dreams were often the easiest way for me to separate, because I would realize that I was dreaming. I don't remember what book it was. Someone told me to read this book about astral projection, and I picked it up. And one of the things that was mentioned as like a tip in this book was to, before you go to sleep, to write on your arm, "You're sleeping." And during the day, and when you're awake and you're awake, you're supposed to keep looking down at your arm every so often, so that you get into a physical, reminder to always look at your arm. That way, when you're dreaming, if you're having a lucid dream, you look down at your arm and there it is. And you're kind of signaling, hey, this is what's going on. So the first tattoo that I got when I was 18 was very typical 18-year-old tattoo. From the time frame that I was 18 was to go get some kanji tattoos. And one of the pieces of kanji I have was dream. And I did that because I knew people would ask me, what does your tattoo mean? And I would have to explain, and I would say the word dream. And so that did really happen a lot. It still happens. And I hoped that would translate into the dream world, and it really didn't ever. So I have this tattoo now.
Yeah. What other tattoos do you have that would have a life meaning?
I have an infinity symbol that basically is a reminder of my belief in reincarnation and that life always keeps going on, even if it's different. I would say that's probably, as far as this type of thing, the only tattoos that I could say fall into that category, philosophy-wise. But I have others that are meaningful in my life in other ways that are just more personal.
You've heard of ball lightning, right?
Yes.
Have you had any experiences with that in the area?
I haven't, and I'm surprised because I live in a very sparsely populated part of Illinois, and as a kid, my cousin and I were outside all the time, especially in the summer, and we both lived near railroad tracks, and we would walk these railroad tracks way out of town, out into the woods. We use it like a road to get out of town to the woods.
Yeah.
But we'd be out there, even if it was, a terrible thunderstorm, because we were stupid kids and we were unsupervised, and that's what we did. But I do remember once seeing lightning hit near the railroad tracks, but I never saw the ball lightning form like I've seen in videos of it, like between the railroad tracks. So I'm surprised I haven't, but no, I haven't.
Okay. The lights in cornfields, what do you think that is?
I think, again, it kind of goes back to that's what this energy is able to present itself to you as at the time. I haven't seen any lights in a cornfield specifically. The lights that I have seen, the one was in a Civil War cemetery close by that looked like a dull, like cheap dollar store flashlight, like that kind of yellow glow. Definitely seemed like someone was moving a flashlight. That's the only way I can describe it. But when I approached it, there was no one there and the light was gone. The other lights that I've seen in the sky definitely didn't behave like flashlights. They were much bigger and brighter and different colored. So as far as lights in the fields or, in these areas, Stan Gordon likes to call them mini UFOs, and he says that he has tons of stories of them actually passing through walls and cars and things like that. I don't know. I do. I think it just goes back to this is all the same thing, and this is how it's presenting itself to you based on whatever variables you're falling under.
Do you think that our thoughts affect our reality?
100%. I couldn't be more clear and steadfast with that answer. 100%. I feel like I've experienced that in my own life several times, and I think really that is the basis of magic, and that's why I don't discount magical practice the same way that I used to. It's all this unseen ability that we all have that we just don't operate on until we do. Sometimes you do it subtly, and sometimes you don't even know that you're doing it, but it happens. And you manifest these changes and interactions with people, and it happens. It happens all the time, and you write it off as a coincidence or something. But you have a song stuck in your head for 3 days, and then you get in your car and you turn the radio on, and it's playing on the radio.
Yeah,
it's not happenstance. That's your thoughts manifesting into reality.
Where there's probability of something happening, if your thoughts are intent on that, it will happen.
Yes, absolutely.
At least to a small degree. Sometimes those intentions become manifest in a way that you didn't think would happen.
Yes. 100%.
Have you ever had something manifest in a way you didn't expect?
In a way I didn't expect.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can answer that question. I don't think I have an answer for you. I'd have to really think about that. Maybe it's because when it doesn't happen the way that you expect it to, or it doesn't happen at all, you write it off a lot easier, and it doesn't stay in the forefront of your mind like something that you got exactly what you wanted.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a tough one. I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
What type of meditative practice do you do?
Well, I think I am borderline undiagnosed ADHD, and I struggle to sit and do nothing. So my meditative practice is limited. And when I say limited, I don't mean that it doesn't ever happen. It just means that it takes a lot for me to focus on nothing or on something without moving or getting up and walking. I have bad habits of oral fixation, like to always have something in my mouth, like, a piece of candy or a piece of gum or a drink, whatever it is, an ink pen, anything. I'll chew on anything. Give me something and I'll chew on it. So those struggles that I have make meditating really hard, but it happens a lot. It just happens for shorter frequencies. I don't often have visualizations whenever I'm meditating, but whenever, this will be in the documentary, a little sneak peek, when I met with Kevin and Jessica in Kentucky in the woods, I got into a complete stranger's car and we rode out into the middle of nowhere together and climbed a hill and communed with fairies. We did a grounding session where, we took our shoes and socks off. We stood in the dirt and the forest floor. And then we meditated for, I would say, 10 or 15 minutes. And I actually had a visualization that time, and I saw these red eyes, and it slowly would zoom away, and I was seeing an owl, which I didn't think was anything. And then we started talking about, don't trust the owls, and then I laughed and thought, well, maybe something's poking a little fun at me or something. But it's very rare that I actually visualize anything whenever I'm meditating.
Okay. Have you tried moving meditation?
I'm not even sure I'm familiar with what that is.
Moving meditation is meditating while walking, while doing something. You can do it at work even. But if you're doing something that requires true attention to what you're doing, moving meditation can kind of heighten the experience of that.
I'm really good at zoning out and bouncing my foot, like if I'm sitting down.
Yeah.
And I'm just now realizing that I probably do this all the time.
Yeah.
I just didn't know it was
unconscious. But in moving meditation, you're making yourself hyper aware of your environment and what you're doing at that moment.
Yeah. No, I see that.
And
wow.
So if you try that, it will help with your sitting meditation to allow you to focus on the moment. This practice, I learned this from Thich Nhat Hanh. He runs Plum Island Monastery. He's from Thailand. I recommend any of his books to you, particularly The Mindfulness of Happiness. That is, it's the hardest book I've ever read, because if you've had any type of loss in your life, it will take you through that in a very visceral and meaningful way.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And going back to the Buddhist side of things.
Yeah.
Talking to Sadhu, can you kind of describe that interview?
Sadhu's interview he actually had reached out to me, and typically whenever I have someone I've never heard of reach out to me, I look into them and I'm just like, there's no way I can't do this. I have some sort of a public reputation, and this is not going to feed that. And so initially I kind of dismissed it, and I sat on the email for a few days, and I thought, no, this might be something. And I'm glad that I did. I reached back out to him. I set something up, and, we did the interview. I don't remember exactly when I actually spoke with him. My schedule for the show is just wild. Anyway, so as soon as he started talking, man, it was like one of those connections that you have where you feel like you've known this person for a really long time. And it was one of the easiest conversations that I've ever had, mostly because I was so fascinated with what he was saying that the questions would just pop in my head, which was great because I had no plan on what I was going to ask this guy. And going into it, I kind of thought some of the stuff was ridiculous just based on what he had sent me in the email. I'm like, there's no way. But when he started to explain some of the things that he briefly had mentioned, in the initial contact, all that went away. And I really, really enjoyed talking with him. And I'm definitely going to bring him back because there's more questions that I have that I've thought of since then. So one of the best conversations I've ever had. We spoke before and after the interview as well. And super nice guy, super great. Really mindful and understanding. And I didn't have to explain things that I poorly explained because he understood what I was trying to say. So it was absolutely great.
Do you think that meeting was something that was put in front of you, kind of like the Lucid Dream experience with the cubes and the individual items in each cube?
I haven't really thought about it that way. I kind of feel like maybe this was something that I had subconsciously kind of manifested this meeting because I've studied Buddhism for a very long time. I wouldn't call myself a Buddhist, but I am in total agreement with most of the philosophy. And I just can't commit to any sort of hard practice. Yeah, even though Buddhism is totally, it's not a religion, it's a philosophy. Anyway, I've been really out of touch with it. And I think I knew that I needed to have something spiritual coming back into my life in that sense. And I think that it just that's what I got, Here's this guy. And so, and it's rejuvenated that in me in a lot of ways. So it's put me back on the Zen path. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I have one last question for you.
Absolutely.
What new projects have you been working on that you can tell us about?
Well, the same old projects I've been working on, but they're getting better and better every day. The Paranormal Patio is ever expanding and ever driving forward. I have this interview with you, and then we're going to turn around and you're going to be on my show. So I'm knocking out another one here tonight. I had one last night. I have one next Friday. I'm doing live streams for the Patreon. Always trying to find something interesting to talk about. Kind of like, it's like a bigger bonus episode of what my normal show is, I feel like. And then I'm working on the documentary still, and I really hope to have that out by summer. There's one more thing I have to go film. I found something that's very interesting, and awesome. I have to get back down to Smithland, Kentucky. So,
any chance to go back to Kentucky is a good thing, I think.
Well, except for last night where they were walloped by an F5 tornado. Turns out.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Is everyone okay? I don't think so. I said it kind of lightheartedly, but no, it was pretty bad. I believe the town's called Mayfield.
Yeah.
There were at least 50 people presumed dead. Everything that I saw from drone footage and everything, it looks really, really bad. So last night was not a good night to make it to Kentucky for sure.
No. Let's hope that they're able to find everyone and hopefully it's not as bad as it seems.
Yeah, although people are going to be without homes and without water and without electricity, the ones that did make it. So
yeah. Well,
send your positive energy that way.
Yes, definitely. We've been looking at certain charitable organizations that help. I'll reach out to them and see if they can do something for the location.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming on, and I'm looking forward to switching over and sitting in the easy seat while you're shooting questions at me.
Yeah, it's always fun being on this side of the microphone, man. I appreciate you letting me come on and giving me this experience.
No trouble. I love talking to Jason today. Like I said, he is a friend and a great researcher. I can't wait to watch his documentary. Please like, follow, and subscribe on whatever platform it is you listen on, and we'll see you soon.